Marissa Kane thought a quick manicure was harmless. But while she admired her fresh polish, 5-year-old Emma and 3-year-old Jack were trapped in a sweltering car, their lives slipping toward disaster. On a bright Saturday morning in the quiet town of Willow Creek, 19-year-old Marissa Kane woke to a warm breeze that promised an early summer heatwave. She had been hired to watch 5-year-old Emma and 3-year-old Jack while their parents attended a wedding that would last all day and stretch late into the evening. Marissa had built a small reputation in the neighborhood as a responsible sitter, someone who always arrived on time and smiled easily. But beneath her polished appearance, she carried a restless energy. Her friends often teased her about her obsession with social media trends and her need to stay connected at every moment. When the children's parents left, they repeated the usual instructions about snacks, nap times, and emergency numbers. Marissa nodded politely, barely noticing the growing heat outside as she promised to keep the children safe and close to home. By mid-morning, the temperature climbed into the upper 80s. The house felt heavy with still air, even as fans pushed warm currents from room to room. Marissa kept checking her phone, flicking through updates and notifications, half listening to the children as they played with building blocks on the carpet. A sudden post caught her attention. Her favorite nail salon had announced a last-minute opening with her preferred technician. The bright image of polished nails and the promise of a discount seemed irresistible after a long week of exams and part-time shifts. She told herself it would be quick, a simple treat that would barely disturb the day. She glanced at Emma and Jack, who were now asking for another round of juice. Their parents had left a detailed list of activities and a reminder to stay indoors, but the idea of a brief drive felt harmless. The salon was only a few miles away, and Marissa convinced herself that the children would enjoy a short car ride. Gathering their small backpacks and a few toys, she guided them to her compact sedan parked in the driveway. The late morning sun burned against the metal as she strapped them into their seats. With the windows cracked slightly and the air conditioner running for a moment before she turned it off, she believed they would stay comfortable. Her mind buzzed with thoughts of fresh color on her nails, the cool air of the salon, and the quick errand that seemed more like a reward than a risk. As she pulled away from the quiet street, she had no sense that the decision she made in that single moment would unravel into a day that everyone in Willow Creek would remember for years to come. The nail salon's parking lot shimmered in the noon sun, heat rising in visible waves from the pavement. Marissa pulled her car into a narrow space near the entrance, confident that this would be a quick stop. She checked the back seat and saw Emma holding her stuffed rabbit while Jack kicked his legs sleepily. Both children looked content enough, and that gave her a sense of reassurance she did not deserve. Marissa turned off the engine, left a small crack in each window, and locked the doors with a casual press of the key fob. She promised herself she would return in 10 minutes, convinced that the faint breeze would keep the interior bearable. Inside, the salon offered a sudden rush of cool air and the gentle scent of polish remover. Soft music drifted over the hum of dryers and quiet chatter. A technician recognized Marissa and waved her toward a chair. The sight of shimmering bottles of polish and the relaxing atmosphere made it easy to forget the heavy heat outside. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends sharing weekend plans, and she slipped easily into conversation with the technician about colors and new trends. Minutes slid by unnoticed. What began as a simple manicure stretched into a longer appointment when another client caused a brief delay. Marissa scrolled through her social feed, laughing at short videos, unaware of the ticking clock. Outside, the sun beat down with relentless force. The temperature inside the parked car soared far beyond the humid air of the street. Emma's cheeks grew red as she shifted against the straps of her seat. Jack began to cry softly, the sound muffled by the closed doors. Their tiny hands pressed against the windows, seeking relief from the stifling air that now felt like a furnace. Pedestrians walked past without more than a glance, assuming an adult was nearby or that the driver had stepped away briefly. The children, as faint whimpers blended with the drone of traffic and the distant hum of an air conditioning unit. Each passing minute transformed the car into an oven. Back inside the salon, Marissa admired the smooth finish of her nails, pleased with the pastel shade she had chosen. She had no idea that the quick errand she promised herself would last only moments had already stretched well past half an hour, and the decision to leave the engine silent was turning an ordinary summer afternoon into a dangerous, irreversible situation. In the blistering heat of early afternoon, the small sedan sat motionless, its dark paint absorbing the sun like a magnet for fire. The inside of the car had become a sealed chamber of oppressive warmth. Emma's stuffed rabbit slipped from her damp hands as she tried to shift against the sticky seatbelt. Her face flushed crimson, pressed against the window in a weak attempt to find a trace of coolness. Jack's cries had turned hoarse and uneven, a desperate rhythm that barely carried beyond the glass. Their water bottles lay forgotten on the floor, out of reach, as the temperature climbed higher with each passing second. Across the lot, Carla Reynolds left a grocery store with a paper bag balanced in her arms. The sound of faint tapping drew her attention, soft but insistent, like a bird against a window. She paused, scanning the rows of vehicles baking under the merciless sun. Her gaze landed on the small car, where she caught the faint outline of a child's hand pressed to the glass. At first she hesitated, thinking perhaps a parent was close by, but the sight of two small faces, red and slick with sweat, shattered that assumption. Carla hurried closer, setting down her bag as she peered inside. The locked doors and silent engine confirmed her growing alarm. She tugged at the handle, finding it unyielding. The children's eyes followed her movement, their expressions dazed and frightened. Without hesitation, she pulled her phone from her pocket, dialing emergency services with shaking fingers. The dispatcher's voice stayed calm and steady, instructing her to remain near the vehicle and describe the situation in detail. Carla relayed the rising heat, the limp posture of the younger child, and the car's exact location while keeping her eyes on the back seat. People began to gather, drawn by her urgent tone. A man from a neighboring shop fetched a bottle of cold water, pressing it against the glass in a futile effort to lower the temperature. Someone shaded the car with a jacket, trying to block the punishing sun. Sirens cut through the heavy air, their wail growing louder as a fire truck and ambulance pulled in with practiced speed. Firefighters leapt into action, swinging a tool against the rear window until the glass shattered in a burst of fragments. The rush of outside air met a wave of suffocating heat as strong arms reached in to lift the children free. Paramedics quickly moved them to a stretcher, applying cool cloths and oxygen, their efficiency underscoring how critical every second had become. Marissa stepped out of the nail salon with a small bag of lotion and a quiet sense of satisfaction, the pastel shine of her freshly painted nails catching the sunlight. The sudden blare of sirens and flashing lights around the parking lot startled her, breaking the calm she had felt moments earlier. She froze when she saw a cluster of people near her car, firefighters packing up equipment, and shards of broken glass glittering on the pavement. For a moment, her mind refused to connect the scene with her own decisions, but recognition arrived like a jolt of electricity. The children were gone, replaced by an empty back seat littered with toys and the remains of a shattered window. An officer approached swiftly, asking for her name and the reason the vehicle had been left locked in such extreme heat. Marissa's words stumbled over each other as she tried to explain that she had only been inside for a few minutes. Her explanation faltered when the officer pointed toward the salon's security cameras. Staff members confirmed that she had arrived nearly an hour earlier. The confident image she had carried all morning dissolved as she realized how quickly her version of events could be disproved. Witnesses stepped forward to describe what they had seen, the children, as faces pressed to the glass, their small bodies listless as the temperature soared, the frantic efforts of strangers to help. Every detail felt heavier than the last, each testimony a reminder of how dangerously close the afternoon had come to tragedy. A paramedic returned to assure the officer that both children were stable and being treated at the hospital for heat-related distress, but the news brought little comfort. The weight of what could have happened settled over the crowd, a quiet tension that made the warm air feel even thicker. Word of the incident spread quickly. A passerby had already uploaded photos of the rescue to social media, and within hours the story began circulating across the town. Messages of outrage and disbelief flooded local feeds, naming Marissa and questioning how someone trusted to protect children could take such a careless risk. By the time she was escorted to the police station for formal questioning, she understood that the day was no longer just a personal mistake. It had become a public spectacle, her name attached to a headline that would follow her long after the broken glass was swept from the parking lot. Emma and Jack spent the night under careful observation at Willow Creek General Hospital, their small bodies rehydrated with cool fluids and monitored for any lingering effects of heat exhaustion. Doctors reassured their relieved parents that the children would recover fully, but the shock of what had happened left a mark deeper than any physical injury. Their parents remained at the bedside, alternating between quiet gratitude for the strangers who had acted so quickly and a simmering disbelief that a trusted babysitter could take such a reckless gamble with their children's lives. News crews lingered outside the hospital, eager for a statement, while neighbors whispered about the near tragedy that had turned an ordinary weekend into a cautionary tale. Marissa, meanwhile, faced the weight of the legal system. After a night in a holding cell, she appeared in court for an initial hearing, her wrists bare of the jewelry she usually wore, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Prosecutors detailed the sequence of events with clinical precision: the rising temperature inside the sealed car, the desperate attempts of bystanders to help, the dangerously high heat that could have killed the children within minutes. The charges of child endangerment and reckless conduct carried the possibility of jail time, a reality that made her palms sweat as she stood before the judge. Public reaction was swift and unforgiving. Social media feeds overflowed with outrage, and the local news replayed the footage of firefighters smashing the car window. Former classmates and casual acquaintances distanced themselves, deleting old photos and unfollowing her profiles. Parents around Willow Creek began sharing the story as a warning, posting reminders in community groups about the deadly consequences of leaving children unattended in vehicles, no matter the season or the supposed brevity of an errand. When sentencing arrived weeks later, the courtroom filled with reporters and concerned residents. The judge acknowledged that Marissa was young and had no prior record, but emphasized that her decision had placed 2 children in mortal danger. He ordered 2 years of probation, 300 hours of community service, and mandatory counseling focused on responsibility and child safety. Though she avoided jail, the punishment was more than legal. Marissa's name remained linked to headlines and cautionary posts, a permanent reminder of a single afternoon's selfishness. Parents continued to retell the story as summer approached, using it to impress upon friends and family the importance of vigilance. In Willow Creek, the memory of that day endured, not only as a near tragedy narrowly avoided, but as a lesson that a moment as convenience can carry a lifetime of consequences.